Our last discussion focused on the meaning and characteristics of social groups. In that discussion, we looked at what is meant by group and also group dynamics. We then had a discussion on some of the features that are common to all groups. Today, we want to look at types of groups and group formation process. Groups that are formed, they are not the same. This is because individuals that come together to form groups have different interests and goals, and therefore based on this, we can classify groups into different types. This discussion, therefore, will largely look at types of groups and the process that the formation of group follows. One of the types of groups that is largely known is called primary group. A primary group is a small group whose members interact informally. They also relate with each other wholeheartedly. They enjoy warm relationship, intimate and also personal relationships. These groups are characterized by identity of goals among them. They also have shared goals. They also have similar view or belief about the world. And they're also concerned about the welfare of each other. One other important distinguishing feature between primary groups and other groups is that relationships in these groups are permanent. They're spontaneous, that is, they develop slowly, and interaction is also face to face most of the times. Some of the examples of groups that can be classified as primary groups are the family, peer group, clans or kinship groups, neighborhood groups, age, sex groups. Primary groups are largely viewed by many as being important instruments or agents of socialization. And they are also an important institution that are used in shaping human behavior and correcting others. So they remain an important group to people and also to society. The other type of social groups is called secondary groups. Secondary groups are groups whereby individuals interact formally, that is, they interact officially, they relate with each other as players of particular roles, and also expect to gain or profit from each other. That is, primary groups are profit-oriented groups. And relationships in these groups are temporary and impersonal or formal. In other words, people come together because there are certain things that they intend to achieve. Once they are achieved, the continuity of these groups ceases. Again, we have said that the relationship between members of these groups are largely impersonal or formal, that is official. Members in these groups do not know each other personally. That is, apart from somebody's name and physical appearance, very little do members know about what individuals do in their private and the kind of life they lead at their private level. They also have little face-to-face interaction, and emotional bonds between members of these groups is also extremely weak. Secondary groups, they also have specific goals and clear division of labor. That is, people come together to achieve certain things, and the achievement or in pursuit of these goals, members of these groups are assigned specific roles to play to help group achieve the intended goals. They are guided by the constitution or regulations, and they also tend to have a hierarchy. That is, members of these groups, they do not have the same status. Some individuals have a higher status, others have a lower status. Some members have great authority, others have less authority. And they also have what they call social ranking. That is, it is possible to rank them from the lowest in terms of status, in terms of authority and responsibility, to the highest. And again, the relationship between members of that group or of a secondary group are governed by written laws, such as the Constitution, policies, and other regulations that govern the conduct of members. Some of the examples of secondary groups that are known are such as employees in organization. That is, the way employees in organizations interact with each other. That grouping of employees in any organization is an example of a secondary group. Students pursuing a particular program of study are also part of or an example of secondary group. Even traders in any given market, the relationship they have with the buyers is also secondary group because it is profit oriented. You sell an item to somebody in exchange for some money, and you do so if it is possible for you to get a profit. Otherwise, continued loss making will seize the relationship between a trader and the buyer. The same thing in an employment organization. Continued people are in organization like an employment organization to earn a living, to earn a salary, to earn income, and that becomes the basis of the relationship. If income is no longer available, or a company or organization becomes bankrupt, then they will cease their membership to that particular organization. The other type of group is called reference groups. Reference groups are basically groups that comprise of people that from time to time we look up to in order to evaluate our own behavior. These groups serve close related but distinct functions, such as normative functions, which largely deals with providing guidance concerning how to act. And they also serve what we call comparative functions, that is, how we assess ourselves in relation to these people. Members of these groups exert a very powerful influence on the behavior, the attitude, identity, the norms, and the values of the individuals, whether or not one actually belongs to that particular group. Examples of these groups are peer groups, professional associations, membership clubs, and even entertainment groups. Take, for instance, the case of members of CU, Christian Union, right? Being a member of such organization, there are certain values that you must espouse and certain behaviors that's expected of you, both when attending these meetings and also outside. And therefore, there's a way in which being a member of these groups influences your conduct and your behaviors. For instance, if they say that our members should not drink alcohol, then obviously a person who wishes or who is a member of this group must desist from taking alcohol. If they say that our members must attend church services on Sundays or other designated days, then again, it becomes a powerful influence, and members find themselves on the stated days attending masses. The same thing would happen even with professional associations. If, say, a professional association of doctors insists that there's a way doctors need to conduct themselves in public and also while handling patients, then it's upon all members of such groups to ensure that their conduct fits into the regulations and guidelines that have been put forward by their professional associations. So when we talk about reference groups, they are groups that we look up to so as to emulate and borrow behaviors that we consider important in shaping our lives and in regulating our conduct as we engage among group members and also as we engage with other members of society. Interest groups are yet other types of groups that we need to look at. These are groups that perform special functions for their members, and they also have certain objectives that they seek to achieve on behalf of their members. They are characterized by a clear definition of their collective goal and also strong articulation of its values, the norms and beliefs. In other words, they have a very strong ideology. One other issue that these groups are known for is the fact that they have strong relationship to each other because they fully participate in the affairs of the group. They also emphasize that their identity is different from others and also challenge or oppose other groups that tend to question their goals or their interests. Some of the notable examples of interest groups are trade unions, political parties, ethnic associations, business groups, or what we call trade associations. If, say, we pick trade unions for purposes of illustration, we know that trade unions fight for members' rights vigorously. They fight for members' pay. They also come on board if some of their members are mistreated or unfairly being treated by the employers. They come strongly to address and fight for the interests and rights of their members. Again, as we know, these groups are opposed to any other group that may emerge with an effort to try to undermine them. Take, for instance, the teaching fraternity, especially the basic education level, where we have COPET and NAT. One insists that it is representing the interests of teachers in high school, while the other one was an umbrella body that represented the interests of all teachers. And most of the times, they rarely take a position that is common to both, because they see each other, they perceive each other as opposing. One sees the other as opposing its interests or undermining its interests. So that is the basis upon which we say that interest groups have a strong ideology, and also they craft an identity that they consider is strongly able to identify them and to distinguish them from the other groups. Reactive groups is also another type of social groups. Sometimes they also call interest groups, but they are not strictly interest groups, because unlike interest groups that pursue solely the interest of members, reactive groups, in addition to pursuing the interests of members, they also respond actively, sometimes violently, to external threats. These groups, they behave like biological organisms, which, when threatened to extinction or with extinction, they fight for their space and ensure that they destroy any other group that's attempting to undermine their interests. These groups tend to develop subculture and identity codes, which reflect strong collective will of altruism, that is, the element of senselessness. Members are encouraged to act selflessly. Rather, members are expected to act on behalf of the groups without expecting any monetary reward. Examples of reactive groups are political pressure groups, sect movements, gangs, as well as initiation groups. You say we pick a gang like the Mungiki as a group, or the gang that we call that is domiciled in Nakuru County, which we call Confirm. These groups, they violently pursue their goals. Their goals is to con people and get the cash they need from individuals through other means. So they use both trickery and violent means to advance their interests and to achieve their goals. And any other time that there appears to be another group that is seeking to rival them in pursuit of what they intend to achieve, then they violently react towards such particular groupings. That's why we are saying that's why they are called reactive groups. They're not just there. They're there, yes, but they also ensure that they protect the space by whatever means available, including the use of violence to ensure that they completely defeat and annihilate any other grouping that's emerging to oppose them or to challenge them. I stated at the beginning of our discussion that our discussion will be twofold. That is, one, we were going to look at the types of groups. And then secondly, we were to look at how groups are formed, or the process of forming a group. So now I want us to turn our attention to group formation process. The formation of a group undergoes certain processes or stages that now I want us to pay our attention to. The first stage of group formation process is what we call forming. Forming is normally the first stage of group formation, and it involves interested members coming together and getting acquainted to each other. So that is the first process. So that individuals that intend to form a group come together, discuss the issues, and then from there, they get to know each other in terms of names and what people do. At this stage again, members ask themselves certain questions. For instance, whether the group offer them, what the group offer them, what group expects of them, and whether they will fit in those particular groups. So it becomes quite important that before you enter into a group or before you join a group, you must ask yourself those important questions. That is, what do you expect to get from the group? What does the group expect of you in terms of contribution, in terms of participation, and also whether you will fit in that particular group? At this stage again, there is also high uncertainty as people or members barely know each other, with some looking up to others for leadership. Remember, you are still kind of strangers. You may have known each other before, but not in the context of group. Now that you are coming together from the group, there is a lot of things that are not clear, which we are now calling uncertainty, so that people are not sure whether they can lead the group or others should lead them. So there's a lot of uncertainty. Again, a member who asserts authority or is knowledgeable may be looked to take control of the group and give it direction. That is, because people still do not know other, then a person in the group who appears to have such knowledge or appears to be more assertive is likely to be perceived by other members as being suitable to take charge of the group. So at this stage that members discuss group objectives and goals. In other words, what is it that we want this group to achieve for us? What are the rules that will govern members? How is our conduct going to be governed? Again, how are we going to achieve whatever we plan as part of the goals of this particular group? So these are issues that come to mind at the forming stage of the group formation process. The second stage of the group formation process is called the storming stage. Just like the name suggests, it's a stage that is characterized by storm winds. Of course, not the physical wind, as we're going to see. At this stage, members openly share ideas and use this as an opportunity to stand out and be accepted by their peers. In other words, you start making contributions about how well the group needs to be run, how meetings should be conducted, the kind of rules that you think are good, and also members that might have been in other groups might also at this stage bring ideas that they consider have been useful to those groups to the table so that they're discussed. Members also start to voice their differences, join them with others who share the same beliefs, and fight for status in the group. At this stage again, people also now want to assert themselves, to get to know what exactly they are, what exactly their position are. And they also take opportunity to seize each other in terms of their strengths and weaknesses. The stage is also characterized by members seeking out familiar individuals to form dyads. Dyads means a group of three, another group of two, and then triads, a group of three, and also eventual control of the group. That is, at this stage again, members seek to know who among the people that have assembled do they share certain viewpoints, do they share certain ideas together, and therefore they are likely to approach each other after these meetings so that they may form alliances, and from there now they can voice their concerns as groups within a group. The stage might also be marked by conflict as the individual personalities and work styles clash within the team. Yes, sometimes people might disagree in terms of approaches, in terms of strategies, and other things, because people might want to bring in styles or approaches that they're used to from other groups or from their life experiences, some of which might not be accepted, or some of which might be opposed by other groups. And that's why we're saying that conflict might be there. Conflict here is not a violent conflict, but disagreements over certain approaches, certain styles. However, it is important that members work to overcome these obstacles and to accept individual differences and to work through conflicted ideas as a team so that they are able to move forward as a team. So storming is an important step. If members are able to overcome the stage, because it is the most difficult stage in the group formation process, because we are now putting down and crystallizing the ideas that you had and making them or putting them down and coming up with strategies on how to have them implemented. The third stage of the group formation process is called norming. It is from the word norms. Norms simply refers to regulations that guide members' conduct. So in the norming stage, consensus develops around who the leader or leaders are and individual members' roles. Personal differences begin to be resolved, and a sense of cohesion and unity emerges. So that we are saying that at this stage, people generally come to agree that we think so and so can serve as our leader for now, even if it is on an interim basis. Again, they also come to understand what the roles of different persons within the group should be. Again, at this stage, differences that might have emerged at the previous storming stage are now being resolved. And in the process, people feel now to be more cohesive and united in terms of moving forward. Again, at this stage, members create norms in order to facilitate group survival, make behavior more predictable, and express the values of the groups. So that here, people now develop regulations that is going to guide their conduct and how they run the groups. For instance, people can say, when do we meet? Where do we meet? When we meet, how long do we take for those meetings? What do we do for people who come late or people who do not come for the meeting? How do we make contributions? At what interval? And how much? What do we do for individuals that fail to make their contributions as stipulated? Assuming, for instance, some members break the rules, what do we do to them? Which rules can be punishable severely? Which ones just need a reprimand? This is the stage that such issues are normally discussed and an agreement is arrived at. However, majority of the group must agree that the norms are appropriate in order for the behavior to be accepted. Once rules have been developed, it is then subjected to people's consensus and agreement. Once they have accepted the rules, then the rules are now implemented. Otherwise, it is difficult to implement rules that majority of the members are not comfortable with. Groups also exert pressure on members to force them to conform the group standards, which is a sign of their commitment, motivation, and performance of the group. So that at this stage, if, for instance, there was an agreement that if you come late for the meeting, then there's a fine that you must pay, then you have to be compelled through pressure to pay such fines, because that is what we mean by groups forcing members to conform to the standards. And when you agree and you pay such fines, it's a sign of your commitment. It's a sign of your motivation. And it's a sign that you are surely going to perform the tasks that have been assigned to you and move the group forward. The fourth stage of the group formation process is called performing. And this is a stage of a fully functional group where members see themselves as a group and get involved in the group activities. At this stage again, there's very clear and stable structures of work, of how conflicts are resolved, and how grievances are handled and also addressed. Members at this stage also feel motivated to perform their tasks, and the roles that are assigned to each member are also quite clear at this stage. Again, the long-term viability of the group is established and nurtured, and this is achieved through redefining group goals. This is in light of information from the outside environment. That is, what is it that we have found outside our group that we find useful? For instance, are there banks that are offering loans at affordable rates, affordable interest rates, or grants? Can we therefore approach them and seize that as a means of mobilizing resources rather than relying on our own contribution? Are there opportunities outside where we can invest, for instance, in farming, in trade, and other activities that enable us to mobilize and raise resources in a much faster way than was anticipated? This is why we are saying that all those aspects, they come in handy. Again, decision making by a group is superior because group generates more information and knowledge, generates diverse alternatives, increases acceptance of a solution, and also increases legitimacy. That is what we mean here, is that decisions that are going to be used or to be implemented in these groups, they are done by all members of the group. And when that is done, they help in moving the group forward because group decisions are more superior to individual decisions. Again, it's also possible to get varied information, diverse information, because people who come from different backgrounds and have different experiences might want to make contribution so that ideas that have worked elsewhere, members can gauge and see how well to demonstrate them so that they can be implemented and help the organization move forward. So performing stage is a very, very important stage and indeed a key one in the group formation process. The last stage of the group formation process is called adjourning, and this stage applies more to temporary groups such as project teams, task forces, or any other group with limited tasks. Otherwise, groups that are meant to be there for a while might persist. For instance, today we have a task force that was appointed by the President of Kenya to see that to undertake or to seek views on how the education sector can be reformed. It has a limited time, and once the time expires and it has executed its mandate, then the group adjourns. So adjournment only applies to groups that are temporary. Otherwise, groups that are meant there to belong, they may not reach at this level unless they are now winding up. At this stage again, some members may feel happy over the performance and some may be unhappy with the way group objectives were pursued. Indeed, not everybody might feel satisfied with their performance of the groups that they belong, and some might be apprehensive, and some might think that they ought to have done better if they did things in a different way. It's also expected that most of the group's goals have been accomplished, with the main task being documenting the effort and the results. It is hoped that when at the adjournment stage, the most of the tasks that the groups were assigned have indeed been achieved, and therefore we now need as a group to document or put into writing and record the achievements that have been made, the efforts that were made, and the challenges that were encountered. Again, as the workload is diminishing, individual members may be reassigned to other teams, and as the workload diminishes, and the group gets disbanded. Indeed, once most of the activities have been accomplished, then some members of the group may be asked to leave so that a small team remains that now works out the remaining activities at this particular stage. Members may be replaced by new people if the team, the standing committee, with ongoing responsibilities, with the new team going back to a forming or storming stage. In other words, what we mean here is that if the team that is meant to proceed upon the expiry of one, such as consider, say, a group like a board of directors whose term has come to an end, they have to wind up. And a few members, maybe the secretary, who also serves as the CEO of an organization, might still continue serving the new board. And once the new board comes in again, it might also all over again go through the entire process of group formation again until to adjournment level, when its term expires and a new one comes on board. Those are the processes that groups undergo, ideally. However, sometimes groups might not strictly follow these processes, depending on the sector, the characteristics of membership, among others. Thank you so much for your time, and kindly listen carefully to these issues. Any issue that requires further clarification, kindly point it out so that we may spare time to look into it. Thank you so much.